Africans United, Know Thyself, Black Power Radio on Oak 93.5. Each and every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., where we discuss solutions to black communities, local and globally. With Brother Escents Divine, Dr. Kimberly Muktarian, and Brother Ausar, Amen. With special guests every week, you can follow Africans United, Know Thyself, Black Power Radio on Facebook.com/Oak 93.5. Or you can engage in conversation by calling 919-899-9305. Once again, each and every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here on Oak 93.5.
Wow. Peace to the elders, the ancestral giants. Peace to God's goddesses from past, present, and future. Peace to kings, queens, and royal families all over. And peace to you, brothers and sisters. You tune into Oak 93.5 FM, Africans United, Know Thyself, Black Power Radio. Today we're talking about the reconstruction of black civilization. Not nostalgia, but power, direction, and survival for African people worldwide. With the Honorable Brother Ausar, man.
Anakasar, a BB for Hodier, African liberation, black liberation, African power, black power, for every black man, woman, and child on the planet. We are the original people. I am the original man. I am a son of Africa. Peace to the family out there. It's great to be back here. Last couple of weeks, we were unable to come because of the snow, but we have a really good show today where we're going to talk about the reconstruction of black civilization.
We also have a queen, Dr. Kimberly Muktarian.
Good morning, everyone, to the listening audience and to those who view us near and far. You are in for a treat. Why? Because we are going back to the origins of life and bringing us forward to have eternal life.
Mm-hmm. And we have our brother, Shaka, Zulu.
What's up, everybody?
Okay, and I'm Escents Divine. Yeah. And today we're lifting up our real history from Mali, Ghana, and the Dogon to Pan-Africanism and the new moves in the Sahel, and asking what it means in 2026 to rebuild on our own terms. This is not about begging for a seat at someone else's table. It's about remembering we built the first tables and deciding how we can build new ones for our children. The ground of this conversation, we would like to walk through a few key doors: history, power, unity, and strategy. So, Brother Ausar, when we talk about reconstructing black civilization, we're talking about survival, talking about power, direction. Now, why is it crucial at this point in history?
It's very crucial because it's still an all-out attack on the African community globally. Basically, when we're talking about global white Eurasian imperialism, or as a lot of people like to say, white supremacy, oppression, exploitation, everything basically, that's going on in Africa today, that's been going on since the Berlin Conference, as far as, colonizing the African countries, and now they have neo-colonialism that's taking place. Mm-hmm. So it's so important for us to understand history and how Africa was not only the destruction of black civilization, but the deconstruction of black civilization. That's why we had to reconstruct. And as we discussed on this show before, the main thing that they focused on was our mind, right? To basically penetrate our minds, give us an inferiority complex, through a lot of the trauma, that we've had to face globally through the enslavement of our ancestors, and then in Africa, the motherland, the colonization and the imperialism, right? So our solution, right, when we understand history and how they deconstructed Africa and made us run for our lives, and I'm going to pass it over to Brother Shaka to kind of help us out by breaking down the Honorable Chancellor Williams' great book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, right? And so what we have to do is reconstruct it. And one of the things that we do at KCSSU, you know, with the youth, because it's always important that we educate our youth on our culture, our history, our values, our ethics, and our principles. And then our principles of Shetawah Netta, these are divine instructions from our ancestors. And Shetawah means mystery, secrets, hidden. And Netta means nature, cosmic forces, the creator, creation. So when we're talking about Shetawah Netta, we're talking about the secrets to life, the secrets to survival, the secrets to thriving. And our first principle is Shetawah Netta enjoins that the main purpose of life is the great awakening, to know thyself, spiritual enlightenment, what our ancestors call Nihas, the great awakening. So the great awakening is coming in who we are as a people, understanding our foundation, understanding that we are spirit, and all is spirit. And the second principle in Shetawah Netta is Shetawah Netta enjoins that Shetawah Netta enjoins that Shetty, spiritual investigation, is the highest endeavor in life. So basically what this is teaching us is that we are investigating our essence as spiritual people. We're also investigating all areas of life. When you're talking about nature, you're talking about the water, you talk about which we call Tefnut. You're talking about the wind, which we call Shu. You're talking about the ground, what we call Geb, and you're talking about the heavens, what we call Nu. So these are basically elements of the universe, right? And we all know that we are also all made of elements of the universe. So when you're talking about the knowledge of self, and when you're talking about spiritual investigation, we're talking about our essence as a people, and we know that all is spirit. Also, in our values and ethics and principles, and these are so important because what this does, it helps us to get our mind back to an African-centered orientation. Because when we understand history, and you can tell by the language that we're speaking here today, English, a lot has been stripped from us, right? So when we're talking about the 10 virtues of an initiate, the first one is so important, which is control your thoughts, right? And when we're talking about controlling our thoughts, those thoughts has to be based off of our foundation, which is Mayat, right? And Mayat is a philosophy and a way of life that's dealing with truth, justice, order, balance, harmony, reciprocity. These values basically help to shape our mind. And we are also instructed to think Mayat, speak Mayat, and do Mayat. So what this does is help us to understand the need for us to unify as a people. And what we do is we Sankofa. And what Sankofas mean is we go back in history to learn what our ancestors have taught us and what they have left behind. They left a lot behind for us to be able to basically study and learn for when we tap back into who we are as a people. Unfortunately, there are a lot of forces out there that don't want us to unify as a people because they know how powerful we are and they know how powerful we were in the past. And that's why history is so important. And at this time, Brother Shaka, if you could give us a little, before we move on with the show, a background on Chancellor Williams and the destruction of civilization.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, brother. So Chancellor Williams has had like one of the most profound effects on me in my life. He's one of my favorite authors. So for people that doesn't know, The Destruction of Black Civilization, written by Chancellor Williams, is I call it the Black Bible. If you want to know what happened, what's happening, and what's going to happen, read that book. It'll change your life. So for people that doesn't know, I wanted to go across this educational background real fast. Because we got to understand, I told Brother Ausar last night, we were speaking on the phone, about how it's like a relay race. You take the baton and you pass it off to the next generation. We always got to teach our children to replace us, teach our people, teach the youth to replace us, not so we can hoard the information. And so it's like passing the information off to the next generation like a baton, and they pass it off to the next generation, so on and so forth. And so this is what Chancellor Williams did. This is what our elders did, our ancestors did before us. And so some of his educational background, he went to Armstrong Technical High School. He graduated from this high school in Washington, D.C. after his family moved during the Great Migration. Howard University, Williams earned both his bachelor's in arts education in 1930, his master's in arts and education in 1935 from this historically black university. American universities, he received his PhD in sociology in 1949, where his doctoral dissertation focused on storefront church movements in the United States. Mm-hmm. His postgraduate and research studies, in addition to his primary degrees, Williams conducted extensive research and postgraduate work at several other institutions. The University of Chicago and the University of Iowa, he performed postgraduate studies at these universities between 1935 and 1941. Oxford University and the University of London, he served as visiting research scholar at these English institutions from 1953 to 1954. And finally, the University College of Ghana in 1956, he began significant field research in African history at this institution. And so I just wanted to read that because I couldn't memorize all that. And so, Chancellor Williams, the brother mortgaged his home. He sold his home. A lot of people that know this, they just know that, okay, he sold his home to publish the book, the Destruction of Black Civilization. That's some of the truth. Chancellor Williams was a field researcher. So when you want to do I read books. I read a lot of books. I read scholars. I know about citations and references and stuff, but I never did the field research. And that's what it takes a lot of times. So our elders and our ancestors that came before us, they went on the ground. And so no other brothers and sisters believed in the book enough or his research enough to give him funding. He couldn't find it because it went against the institutions where they didn't want us to know who we were. So he did not get the funding. So he funded himself by selling his home. And so he bring us this information, and this is what he did. And so, as Brother Ausar was telling me, that is about the destruction of the reconstruction of black civilization. And I was sharing with him, in order for us to know the reconstruction of black civilization, we have to know the destruction of black civilization. And it's the solution that's within the problem. In order for you to have a solution, you have to know what happened. You have to know what's going on, because you will see a pattern. It takes 2 times for something to happen to be a pattern. And this is a constant pattern that we see. And we see these gatekeepers, these people, they use us against each other. Mm-hmm. They have these gender wars going on. Men against the women, light skin against dark skin, Christians against Muslims, Democrats against Republicans. After this Trump election, I seen people get divorced. She voted for Biden and I'm divorcing her. And, and so we got to bring it back to critical thinking skills and how to think for ourselves. And our elders came before us. And so I could end right there, brother. So do you want to go? Because I could continue.
I just think it's, important for us to understand that when we're talking about the destruction of black civilization, the invasions, because the invasions are what basically pushed us to what they consider to be sub-Saharan Africa and all over Africa, right? And the invasions kept coming. And if we look at what's basically, taking place in Africa today, the invaders are still there. The whole North Africa is inhabited by Arabs, right? The Muslim world, Islamic states, and things of that nature. And that's important to understand, because they came and the first places they hit was North Africa, right? And that's why when we look at North Africa now, you see that it's dominated by Islamic states. And I just think that, when we understand how and what they did to destroy our communities, where we had to run for our lives, and that's why a lot of the families got split up during these invasions. And that's why all over Africa, notice a lot of the cultures are similar. Even though it's diverse, because the continent is a big continent, even though it's diverse, the culture and the traditions, a lot of them mirror each other, and I think that that's important, for us to understand.
Something else about the destruction of black civilization by Chancellor Wilson. I think he was talk about breaking down how we had political systems, educational systems, and all that before the invasions and all. So right. I only state that to say that if it was once, if we once had implemented that, had we can once again.
I think that's
once
important.
again,
Right.
build again.
Yeah, but that's important because what that basically show us, and we know it through history and through studying and research and all of the artifacts and all of the writings on the wall that our ancestors left for us, that we had high level governance as a people, and we basically, they consider it today what they consider supposed to be democracy, where the people are helping to make decisions for their society. It was really like that in Africa, but we didn't have to call it democracy. Basically, what we call it is Maya.
Right. So we know that no matter how much we talk about our greatness, our people, or what we accomplish, but we still over here we're still having trouble, just with housing, with the educational system, with our health system, and all that. So,
and that's what Chancellor Williams covered in the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization.
Uh-huh.
He emphasized on how some of us became backward, and because we was on a run all the time due to these invasions. And by us being destabilized like this, we couldn't build a civilization because it wasn't stabilized. Mm-hmm. And so some of us, some people did turn to cannibalism. So a lot of Europeans like to focus on that, like that was us. That was all. No, that's not. We had, because it was survival. And because we was on a run, we had to go and go into the interior of Africa and more into the interior. That's how North Africa got taken over and Eastern Africa got taken over by the Arabs. Yeah. And so that's why you go to Morocco, you be like, who is these Berbers? Why is these people here? You think that they from there? They're not. They are descendants of the invaders.
What's a Berber, brother?
The Berbers are actually African brothers and sisters, but we look at them we look at Berbers today as the invaders, as the Arab phenotype. Mm-hmm. And so when we think of a Berber, we think of an Arab. But really the Berbers is you could call them the Moorish brothers and sisters that came from those areas or whatever. And so, but it's a lot of confusion, just like when with the lines, the territorial lines that they created, it caused a lot of confusion until this day. And so, for like what he was saying back then applies today. We're destabilized. Mm-hmm. It's hard to build stuff.
Very much so.
When you're destabilized, it's hard to, institutions is the thing. This is why I look at these superstars and I don't take them serious. Because it's all about, why don't we have the black grocery stores, the hospitals, the schools? Because in order to carry out a projection, if I project 50 years from now, black people are going to be doing this. In order to carry that out, you have to create an institution. Yeah. So we're surrounded by institutions, whether it's the prison industrial complex, whether it's the military industrial complex, but it's the institution. Some brothers call institutionalized when they come out the institution. Yeah. And so we're surrounded by their institutions because they carry out their projections of what they plan for the next 50 years and the next whatever. So institutions is everything, but we're destabilized. Like the radio station we're on now, like we're destabilized. We need our own thing. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think institutions can also just be a certain way, like the community functions as a whole. It ain't even got to be a building institution. Yeah. Sometimes I see it in that fashion. And so speaking of the institution and the systemic, and the systemic racism is the root cause of many of the issues affecting the black and African people right now. Let me ask Dr. Kim. Let's get Dr. Kim in here today.
Some feminine energy.
Yeah. What can we do to start dismantling this systemic racism?
Well, I believe there can only be one truth, and that truth is dismantling the lie. And what we've always known is that anytime you have to attack a people, you must be inferior. Right. You are not superior whatsoever. So any of these institutions that are created are designed to continue to cause conflict. Mm-hmm. And you can't be a citizen and be in constant conflict. We are not citizens of a land that we have to fight to ask for permission to be here. So what we have to do is first decolonize our own mindset.
Whoa. And just the mindset is what I was just speaking about when I say the whole community, like the community that we vibrate in is institutionalized in itself. Right. I'm sorry, Dr. Kim.
No, that's perfectly correct. We have to, first of all, like Brother Shaka said, if we're constantly on the run, how can you ever build? Mm-hmm. So first of all, we have to stand still and know thyself, Brother Ausar says. Yeah. So if you're standing still, you know yourself, then you stop running. You become a holistic person mentally. And then you shut down the lie that says that you have to be accepted in order to live. That's a beast-like mentality in the first place. To think that in order for you to live, you must constantly be in a war or fight. Humans do not have to constantly be in war to live. Right. There should be a rest. There should be a peace. That's African-centeredness, is to be a person at peace and at war. Barbarianism and cannibalism, and come on, we're talking about the creator who made all things. Why would we have to starve? That's a lie. There's no such thing as starvation. There's no such thing as greed. So some of these things, we have to come to a place of rest mentally, that we don't have to be anything to America or to the European nations. Everybody's trying to prove a point, but we were the original people. And as the original, you don't have to define who you are. You just be. And as a matter of fact, you are superior, not because you need to be over anything, but because you were genetically made this way. You are the origins of. So when we talk about reclaiming Black civilization, we're really talking about all civilizations. It's all encompassing, because none other would actually exist. We wouldn't have to live an alternate lifestyle. And that is in everything that we do. Everything should line up. So we are using this opportunity to call for our people to stop in their tracks. Why? Because we don't need to run from a lie. We just need to stand in our truth.
So Brother Ausar and Brother Shaka, let me ask y'all, where do you see our people, where you see us already chipping away with at this system? Where do you see, You
talking about systemic racism?
It's systemic racism, yeah.
Well,
We chipping away at it already. If we are, where do you see it happening?
Well, to be honest, that's all that's going to happen. You're going to just keep chipping, right? And you'll never really get nowhere. As Derek Bell, the great attorney and scholar, one of the founders of critical race theory, when he talked about the permanence of racism and how racism is embedded within this society here in the United States. So, and I asked this question, right? And the question was, one of the questions is, systemic racism is the biggest issue that we have globally, but is that the biggest issue we have, or is it the way that we respond and deal with it?
That's true.
Because we cannot change people from being who they are, their genetic makeup, and the way that they operate, and the way that they think. See, remember, our first principle in the 10 virtues of initiate is control your thoughts. We can't control their thoughts. The only thoughts we can control is ours. So how do we deal with and respond to this negative phenomenon of systemic racism, right? We have to do it, like they say, and I saw this the other day, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's how we had to address this, right? But we have to address it globally as well. We do what we have to do here to make life better for our brothers and sisters. And we do try to dismantle it. But the way the system is set up, it has a hedge of protection on it, right? And we're always the victim. And we can see this through history. They love to keep us dangling things within our face, and we think that things are going to get better, but then they come with something else, right? When you talk about the way they split the black family up, and then when you talk about, the crack epidemic, and then when you talk about the gang explosion, now they got all kinds of things out here, basically that affect us in a negative way. So when we're dealing with systemic racism in this country, and really, to be honest, it has to be done globally, but I think that if we address it and we come together, we unite, and we band with our brothers and sisters in the diaspora and on the continent, and then that way we'll be able to attain power, right? We might not be able, because see, one thing about it, like I said earlier, we can't change nobody else's mind. If somebody going to be racist, if the system's foundation is built off racism, if the Constitution is built off racism, in order to dismantle racism, institutional racism, systemic racism, you have to overturn this whole system with the new system. And until that happens, racism will be permanent, as Derek Bell stated.
Right.
And I like to add to that we got to know how it work, how systemic racism work. I remember I was at work one day. See, Frank, you didn't know you was gonna be a part of this if you listening to this video, if you listen to this show one day, Frank. So my coworker one day named Frank, I'm at work like in 2017, and Frank like 49 at the time, and he was like, I overheard him talking to somebody. He said, people talking about racism and stuff. He's a black brother. He said, people talking about racism. I ain't never experienced racism. It ain't never happened to me. I ain't never And I'm looking at Frank like Frank don't understand the institutionalized aspect of it. It's systemic. And he don't understand it. It's more subtle. It ain't in your face. It ain't overt like it used to be calling you an N-word in your face. It's more subtle. We have a black president. What are you talking about? It ain't no more racism. And so, for example, so Frank doesn't understand, so that lets us know how much hard of a job that we have, how much hard it is to come together, because some people don't see it. Frank is not about Frank. It's about some of the people that think like Frank. And so Frank don't see, for example, my cousin got colon cancer. And I did according to Pew Research Center, we all know black folks, we the highest numbers with colon cancer and things. Everything bad, we got the highest numbers in. And so, so they can't. So my cousin, she just admitted. She said the medicine that they gave me messed my liver up. She said the chemotherapy messed me up even more. And I asked the doctor, "What can you do? What can you do?" He said, "I don't want you to put you up under chemo anymore, but I might have to." And she said that she went to the African herbalist. She said she took some Asian tea, some stuff, but she's confused. She don't know the systemic racism aspect when it comes to the murder system. I meant the medical system. When it comes to the medical system, and so so she don't know that. For example, we suffer from the things that we suffer from because we're vitamin D deficient. African Americans, or whatever we call ourselves these days, we suffer from vitamin D deficient. When you, for example, when you take a lizard, when you go to the pet store, and I'm not saying that we're pets, I'm just comparing this. When you take a lizard, go to a pet store, you take a lizard out the store and you buy a lizard, and you got to take UVB light bulbs with that lizard. Why? Because you're taking it out of its ecosystem. So when you take people from originally where they come from,
That's right.
and you take them out their ecosystem, their life expectancy ain't gonna be as long as it would be in their natural environment. So when you bring us over here where there's not enough vitamin D, if we live above Florida, we only getting vitamin D between spring and fall time. And you got to come outside between 10:18 a.m. and 2:18 p.m. That's when the sun is at its peak, when you're getting vitamin D. In between that, we're vitamin D deficient. That means we could get cancer faster than anybody. And we got European diets. We eat the foods that they eat. And so we suffer from it. And then we go to their murder system, I meant medical system, and then they give us suggestions, and we think that our lives is in our doctor's hands. We don't see the systemic racism. It's not the doctors that's racist. It's that what they was taught in school is racist.
That's right.
And so the measure, and I'm not getting off the subject of Chancellor Williams or whatever, but it's just we got to understand the systemic racism part. So, for example, the measuring stick in the medical system is the European biology. So when I go, for example, black folks, we have a natural hemoglobin level of 12.5 to 13.5. That's our natural hemoglobin level. So a European's hemoglobin level is from an 11.5 to a 12.5. So I might go in, mine's a 13.5. They might say your hemoglobin too high. You need to get it down. Why? Because the measuring stick is the European biology. What they was taught in medical school is racist. It's not that they can have a black wife or a black. It's not that. Is that what they learned? So once you understand how it works, how it's put together, you can then come up with solutions how to get out of it.
Well, let me say this too, Brother Shaka. I remember as a school teacher, I would always say the same thing. Why? Because they would tell us that black women were known to get osteoporosis faster because we lacked vitamin D. And so we didn't stay out in the sunlight long enough so that our bones could fuse. So they would always tell us as we got older, we needed to have supplements because we were more prone to have bone fractures. And actually, my grandmother died not because she was old, but because when she broke her hip, she fell and broke her hip, they gave her medications that fought against it instead of healed it. And it just sent her body into shock.
Right.
And then she never had really any she had never been in a hospital. And when she broke her hip, she was in there and she just went delirious. Like, do not leave me here. I don't want to be here. This is crazy. And it just sent everything into a tailspin. And we knew it was like, this is not her. Even with a little fracture. I mean, she couldn't move anymore. But that happened to her mother, who had a bone fracture. And she had a bone fracture. So black women, it's an injustice for us to even be in this climate. Because this is not our original place of habitation. I used to tell people that all the time. And our children. When our children go to school, and the state of North Carolina and the education system tells us that our children should have at least 30 minutes of recess time. No, your children may need 30 minutes. Our children may need more time outside in the sunlight. I know that brothers will tell me, Dr. Kim, when they put us in those lockdown facilities, or we're in there too long with no sunlight, or one light versus the other, it can have a detrimental effect on the mindset. And now, while some Europeans may be perfectly okay with no sunlight, places like Australia, places that only have sunlight 6 months out of the year, I believe somewhere along in there, perfectly okay. Everybody is not. These things are unjust by itself. Just coming into cultures and moving them all over the place, those are injustices. Whether you want to believe that they are, that we are durable, or we are resilient, or we have resistance, that is not our normal position. And these things have to be said. We just can't adapt. We shouldn't be expected to adapt. And I think that's one of the problems that, we start talking about systematic. No, some of these things are just negligent, pure negligence, not systematic, just negligent. And and we as a people owe it to ourselves that if we're going to have not just a life, but a quality of life. We're so used to just existing.
I love that, sister. I love that.
You love that? Okay, Brother Shaka, listen. And we're gonna have to come to a place where just existing in the European world says it is anti-black. It is anti our life. It is anti our longevity. It is anti our quality. It is anti mental health. When we don't get enough sunlight, it is anti our mental health. I think we did an episode, did we not, brother, on the psychology, the American Association of Psychology, APA, who just came out and said, they were wrong and they had been diagnosing us incorrectly. So then when we go back, like brother said, about the institutions and what we're actually learning and producing for them, we get their degree to go against our own bodies. It's against our own self-interest.
So
okay, go ahead.
So I'm hearing y'all say, Brother Ausar mentioned Derek Bell and the critical race theory. What is it? A permanence of
racism.
Yeah, the permanence.
It's embedded within the system.
Right. So basically, we would no other would move ahead without it benefiting the system.
The system couldn't exist without racism.
The system wouldn't exist without
it wouldn't
racism.
exist. The whole system is based off of murder, basically coming over here what they did to the Native Americans and when they came and got us. And this is important to understand because, and this is why knowledge is so important and we have to spread the word because so many of our brothers and sisters globally,
that's right?
And here in the United States have never even heard of systemic racism or institutional racism. A lot of times, if you don't know that you're being oppressed and exploited, you thinking that things are just the way they are, and this is the way it is, you're not going to fight because you're not going to know what you're fighting for. And that's why the knowledge of self is so important because it helps to give us a foundation. That's why literacy is so important because remember, it was a reason why it was illegal for us to read according to the Europeans because they didn't want us to get no knowledge. Because when you start to get knowledge and you start to acquire a consciousness, right, and you understand that you're the original people and all of our contributions and you understand that the world is off balance, right? And Maya is dealing with balance.
Yes.
So once we come back into our African-centered consciousness, we understand our responsibility to our brothers and sisters, to our children, and to humanity, and to the world. And so when we're talking about systemic racism here in the United States, right, awareness is important. And unfortunately, a lot of our brothers and sisters become a part of a corrupt system and work within the corrupt system. So it's hard to fight against yourself, right? Because if you fight against yourself, you're going to lose. So what they do is they choose to work on the side of the oppressor, right? And they make excuses for the oppression. And who does the blame always go on? Us, the black people.
And
right?
brothers,
They blame our children. They target our children, right? They talk bad about our women in the conditions that they in. They talk bad about our youth, and they try to make us feel guilty to take off the onus of what they have created, right? So the knowledge of self, institutions, right? But this is important for us to understand. We need institutions, but we need a system.
Yeah.
That the institutions basically, and our system is based off of Maya, truth, justice, and righteousness, right? So we really have to get serious as brothers and sisters because there's a lot of information that's out there today that's causing division. And we've spoken about Memorandum 46 on this show about 4 or 5 times how the government here in the United States intentionally wants to keep the African Americans away from the Africans and keep us separate, and also across diaspora, because the one thing they fear is our unification, right? Because once we have a unification, and then we'll be able to move according to the way we want to move. And before I pass it back to you, brother, I want to make this one point. Right? I was thinking about this last night. If you ask white people, what are they? They'll say European. They're from Europe, right? Without hesitation.
Yeah.
If you ask Chinese people where they from, they'll say Asia, or they'll say they're Asian without a doubt. But a lot of black people don't want to identify with Africa and being African. And I think that's important. Another point I want to make right quick is this, right? And this is throwing no shots at the Muslims, the Arabs, because I think what they're doing, I think the way their culture is incredible, where they're all on the same page, right? Because as soon as you see them, you know what they are. Right? And I think that it'd be powerful for us as a people that when you saw a black person, you knew that they were African-centered.
Yeah. You were right. You right down the line where I wanted to head to. Dr. Kim, Brother Shaka mentioned something about the institutions, how it messes with the mind or whatever, like the deficiency, the vitamin deficiency of the vitamin D, and we don't even know that being without the sunlight that long or whatever, so we're not being taught this. So what brother talking,
and that's a solution to that, real fast solution instead of the problem. A solution to that, of course, if you live above Florida, depending the equator line, depending on what part of Florida, if you live above Florida in the United States, we need so it's going to be hard to get vitamin D from the sunlight if it's between the spring and the fall. So to compensate for that, is nothing like sunlight, first of all. But so to compensate for that, you could get UVB light bulbs because it produces vitamin D. You could get vitamin D supplements, things like that to compensate for it. And so there's foods that you can eat, there's supplements that you can take, and there's I got like UVB light bulbs in the main room that I be in, which is my room, and so it costs like $38 or whatever. It's kind of expensive, but it lasts for like 2 years, and you could get ain't nothing like sunlight though. But these things compensate for it.
I'll just sit on the back porch every once in a while and let the sun just beam on me. But where I was going though, Brother Shaka, is that we got the other entities functioning now that's talking about I don't want to word it too backwards. It's just a lot of division going on over here now, and we're not understanding that the institutions, the systemic racism of it, and how it keeps us, it keeps us from functioning together, unifying brothers. So I was making a valid point about our people would not identify with just one origin, We foundational Black Americans, but as it's confusing to me. I was watching a few things this morning. You got the Black Hebrew Israelites, I'm sorry, and you also got the Black Lions coming about right now. Also,
They had to switch their name up.
I know.
The Black Panthers. They went off the Black and they had to switch their name up.
Off the Black Panthers. They gave a reason why. I didn't finish watching all their segment yet, but I'm just saying all these different entities traveling through the same institutions though. So what I'm trying to figure out is
it's pretty good. That's a very good capture, sir.
We trying to figure out how, to uniform, or how do we what brothers help me out here, right?
Right. Well, I always like to go back to the teachings, our ancestors, right? And and the book of Ptah-hotep, the oldest book in the world, right? And the instructions was to teach the hearers that which has been told to those who have followed the ways of the ancestors and listened to the spirits, right? So when you understand, a lot of times, and when you come into contact with people, you know if they're listening or not. When we work with the children at KCSU, the first thing we say is "I'll go," which means listen, and they say "I may," which means we're listening, right? Because the only way you're going to receive information is learn is to be open-minded. So when we're talking about teach the hearers, you're also talking about teaching people who are open-minded. Because if people have a closed mind, that means that automatically they're not open to new learning. So we can't waste a lot of time like that. And I think that's what happened. That's what's happening a lot online, the internet, with the FBA and other groups and things of that nature. And it takes the focus off of dismantling institutional racism and dismantling colonialism and imperialism, right? Because if they can keep us fighting with each other like they want to do with Memorandum 46,
that's it.
They're accomplishing their goals. When we're going. So the thing that I think is important for us, the brothers and sisters who believe in Pan-Africanism, because Pan-Africanism is the unification of all Black people, African people, wherever we stay, wherever we are on the planet. And, a lot of these movements, what they're talking about is delineation, which is separating. Yeah. And we all know that when you separate, you become weaker. And that's why, a lot of our great brothers and sisters in Africa is talking about a one Africa, because they know if they unify, they will be stronger, right? So I think that, that's why I really love and enjoy working with children more than anything on this planet. Because if we're sincere, genuine, and authentic with the knowledge that we're basically giving to our youth, the principles of Shetawat Netta, the 10 virtues of initiate, control your thoughts, control your actions, steadfast in purpose, have faith in your teacher's ability to lead you on the path of truth, have faith in your ability to accept the truth, have the ability to act with wisdom, freedom from resentment under the act of persecution, freedom from resentment under the act of being wrong, have the ability to distinguish right from wrong, and number 10, have the ability to distinguish the real from the unreal. That right there, number 10, is so important. Have the ability to distinguish the real from the unreal, because you know that we've been given a false consciousness, as Dr. Amos Wilson talked about, the falsification of African consciousness, right? So what we have to do is understand who we are as a people. And once we start to align ourselves up and understand the power of unity and the power of Pan-Africanism, and then we'll be able to make progress as a people.
And I like to add to that, brother. So Hiawatha, from the Iroquois Confederacy over here, the so-called Native Americans, he had brought the 5 tribes together, and he had told, and this represents Pan-Africanism, where I'm going with it. And so I'm just using this story to explain it. So Hiawatha got the Onondagas, the Cayugas, the Calapooyas, the Senecas. He got all of them together, and he sat them down. He was talking about the Europeans, and he was telling them, there's people that came over here, they're going to destroy us. And he took 5 branches that represented the 5 tribes. And he said, if we stay separated, it's easy to break us. So he took one branch, he broke that one branch. He said, if we stay separated. And this is what represents the people that's talking about delineation and all this stuff. And then he took 5 branches and put it together to represent the 5 tribes. He said, but if we all unite and come together, he tried to break it and couldn't break it. And he said it'd be hard to break us. And, you know, and that represents Pan-Africanism. It's about us globally because we all suffered. People owe us, they took land, we speak their language, we think in their language. We already got one hand tied behind our backs, you know? And so we have to understand how important, and also not to be naive to think all of us are going to come together. Because some brothers and sisters, they ain't no good to themselves and nobody else. And, you know, and so I just wanted to state that. And also going back with what I wanted to say, like Cynthia McKinley, shout out to the sister. She was a black congresswoman out of Georgia. She thought she could be a change agent at first to go in the system and change the system within the system. She was a Democratic sister. She seen that it was a joke. She seen it was a clown show. She seen that you can't be it's systemic. You can't change it. Right. Now, when before they killed the brothers and sisters in Wilmington, North Carolina, they had those political positions. Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Durham, North Carolina, other Philadelphia and other places. They really had power in the early 1900s, and the Europeans didn't like it. Right. You know, and so they always said we'll let them in, but you don't have no control. And I tell people it's like somebody invited me in their house. Like I'm invited into some white folks' house, and they invite me in. Of course, you take your shoes off or whatever, but I ain't got no power. I can't tell people to cut off the television. Yeah. I can't tell them to stop making all that noise. That's their house. I can't change the rules within. And so that's what it's like getting in the political arena with them, thinking that you could change the. That's why it goes back to what Amos Wilson said. Amos Wilson said, create your own political parties. Yeah. Not created to compete with the Democrats or the Republicans. No, created, and you create your own thing to compete with each other. So you create your own parties, and that's the solution. But what happened to us, our leaders were killed. After the Pan-Africanist conference, we had a target placed on our backs. They caused coups. They killed our leaders, and they replaced them with puppets. Yeah. And and then they replaced those with puppets. These people are managers over the global plantation. They could never change. All the black mayors, your black attorney general, your black president, they not gonna change nothing. The black Congress, the black caucus, they ain't changing nothing. They boule, they alphas. Matter of fact, Eddie Robinson wrote a book called 54th Congress. It's called Alphas, 54th Congress. And he was bragging about how the black congressmen, you know, they alphas and stuff, but they ain't changing nothing. Y'all are managers over the plantation. You ain't no liberators, you're managers. And that's what we see with these black politicians. Why are they politicians? Because they practice politics. That's what make them politicians. And so they ain't changing nothing. They managers over the global plantation. They're not liberators.
But you say the alphas, what
the alphas, like alphas, the omegas, and the boule. These colleges, that's why our brothers and sisters, when they go to these colleges, you got to be mindful about these fraternities and sororities. Most people that's in it are not bad people. It's the people that are in political positions that they place there that are part of the get along game. Yeah. You know,
they actually, brother, they follow the manuscript of the European.
Yeah.
So if you go to their institutions, they give you the format and the degree as to how they want you to carry out the assignment. So if you're going to survive in America, then you're going to have to take on whatever that head of state says per institution. So when they take that degree, it's an exchange for their soul. That degree says we allow you to live and prosper. That doesn't mean your people prosper. Right. In fact, that means that we help you suppress your people, and we'll pay you top dollar to do it.
And that's why you got your Maxine Waters.
That's why we don't have to do it. Yeah. We don't have to do it to you. We'll pay you to do it to yourself. Yeah. Yep. And so you start equating success with status quo, or how far you come up the ladder, but it really doesn't mean success for your community. Right. So you can look and see, and I'll give you an example. Wake County, I'm just going to send this shout out to you right now. Almost every last one of your heads in education, Robert Taylor, Alpha. That is your superintendent of Wake County public school system. You talk about Eddie Harden, Southeast High School. Every last one of your high school persons and principals and superintendents are all mostly fraternity. And guess what? It is their location with the highest suspension rates of black children, murder rates in their 27610 zip code, and they don't know what to do because they're not allowed to do it. That's not what the manuscript said for them to do. They're to manage Negroes, not liberate Negroes.
And I like that. This is part of the Reconstruction. Not even getting off the subject. This is a part of the. Once you see how it works, because like I always say, everything doesn't need to be explained on social media. All solutions. There's certain things that's going to take place at the kitchen table in the background somewhere, in the meetings secretly, because we've been compromised so much we can't trust anybody. So even if somebody asks me, so what's the solution? Certain things shouldn't be talked about. Like what I look like telling you about my game plan. You know what I'm saying? That's and so the sister said something about the 27601. And I said before, when you understand how systemic racism works, you'll get it. So it's no more white and black. Like when you fill out a loan application, they don't put your race on the application. Right. You just put your address, your zip code. So now it works off your 9-digit zip code. See, your first 5 digits is going to tell them your area that you live in. Right. That last 4 digits is going to tell them precisely the location that you live in. Right. So, for example, I live in 27603 zip code. Just that by itself tells them, that in the last 4 digits tells them that the median household income is $40,000. The median household education is a high school diploma. Even though I got my bachelor's, but a high school diploma. So, therefore, they set up stores around it, furniture companies called Aaron's.
That's right.
Interest rates like 100-something%.
Right.
You think you got the hookup, and so this is what they do. So it's systemic. So your children are gonna get bused. See, so when the sisters, I seen sisters get offered $30 an hour jobs. They did not take that because they said it's gonna mess my benefits up.
That's right.
Now, guess what the sister just did and don't even know? She thinks she milking the system, but the system milking you. Because guess what you just did? By you living in that zip code, your children gonna get bused to the back of the county. They're gonna go to school in the back of the county somewhere. It's gonna be hard for you to get because people that's low income got hard transportation. It's hard for them to get transportation.
That's right.
You already got to work. So how you gonna meet up at those PTA meetings? How you gonna meet up at those IEP meetings like that? And you got to work, and you about one write-up away from getting fired.
Wait a minute, Brother Shaka. Wait a minute, Brother Shaka. You cannot do that on this show. Sorry, apologizing to everybody. Brother Shaka is telling the truth on steroids. Why do I know this? Because I'm a school teacher. And when they call for our IEP, our black parents cannot even get to their children's IEP because they've bused our children
to the back of the county.
So far away. They cannot come to PTA meetings. They can't come to fundraisers. They can't even be a part of the networking or the infrastructure of what that school is asking for years to come or any kind of 5-year plan. Why? Because our children are just as, brother, that you touch the soul of, and you're right. So when you say those things, as like you said, we think we're milking the system or we're getting by.
They milking you.
They're actually robbing you. Because there was a first injustice done. The first injustice is that the only way I can go to the school is because of a forced quota under integration. That's the first injustice. Is that the only reason why I am coming to the school in the first place is because you have to meet a quota because you did us injustice from the beginning. Now, had we been given what we were supposed to be, what you owed, you wouldn't have to do a quota. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have to file a report. You wouldn't have to fudge the numbers as to who is coming to your school just so that you don't look racist but still are practicing racism.
Yep.
See, we're so busy trying to make ourselves look like we're not racist. Mm-hmm. But our numbers tell us every day we're still operating in a system that is oppressive and is unjust and is demoralizing.
Children not proficient in math, not proficient in reading. Like the LeBron James I Promise School, for the last 3 years in a row, they failed at reading, they failed at mathematics. But they didn't report it to last year. But come to find out, 3 years in a row, you promised what? Promised to make them fail? And so this is what they do to it. So it's so what we do is the Reconstruction.
Come on.
We strap for money. We don't have the money, so it's the funding. So we have to address. So what can you do? What can you add? That's why I took my education. For example, I got a bachelor's in business administration. I know I could benefit from that, whatever jobs I could get. But how can my people benefit from what I got? Because we don't have the money. They got us with the money with the Federal Reserve, with this fiat currency that they got.
That's right.
They fund wars. They make wars happen. You ain't got no enemy, you create one. And that's what they do. And so what do we do to compensate for that? If we ain't got the money, they got the money for the institutions. You got to willing to die for what you believe in. You got to be willing to sacrifice, And that's what Malcolm said, people are afraid to bleed. When he said it, and people are. Because they killed our leaders. They put fear into us. They got the fluoride in the water. The food is being weaponized. They weaponized our women. They weaponize all the education program, the education system, and our children. They don't have no reading comprehension. They can't comprehend what they reading. When I went to prison twice, 03, 05, and most of them read on the 4th grade reading level. So when I found out that these 4th graders and they not on their grade level, they invest in future prison beds based off your reading score.
That's right.
Then I get to prison and those same brothers read on the 4th grade reading level.
Right.
So you're being targeted as a child. That's why I tell these people, even as parents, if we're not together, we got to co-parent the best that we can. Even if the relationship, the marriage didn't work out, we have to co-parent if it didn't work. And if it does work out, hey, we got to still do the best because our children are being targeted. We are being targeted. Okay. And so we have to unite and come for the like-minded people because everybody ain't going to come together. For the like-minded people that could come together.
Yeah, it sounds like Derek Bell was on to something with that critical race theory.
Yeah, he was. And you know, I would like to add to that, you know, it's important for us to understand. That's why, you know, I had asked the question earlier, is the biggest issue systemic racism or the way that we deal and respond to it? And I think it's the way that we deal and respond to it, right? Because, you know, we have evidence and proof at KCSSU that our children are more than capable to be able to read, to be able to basically be proficient, to be able to comprehend, and to have a good vocabulary, right? You just have to work with the children. And it's also good if you have, you know, like, you know, we partner with Shaw University, the incredible Dr. Betty Liverman, right? To have, you know, educators and the students at Shaw who take an interest in the children and work with the children. Because when the children feel that love, see, this is important, right? And they see that they can read, if they learn how to read one word a week, after a while, that's going to increase and they're going to feel confident, right? So they take the confidence out of our children by making our children feel like they have a deficit, like they come into school with a deficiency, with all these IEPs and all these things, and you can't read,
SAT
and you
test.
can't do that, but they can do it.
That's right.
Right? And it's our responsibility. It's not the United States government responsibility
That's true.
to properly educate our children. And Shetawat Netta, number 13, Shetawat Netta enjoins the proper raising and education of our children. This is something that our ancestors laid out for us, right? So what we have to do is we have to be about that action. We have to be about creating institutions. You don't have to start off with a big university. You can start off like they used to do, one-bedroom apartments or whatever, where you're getting students in there and you're laying down a foundation, right? Because understanding, like, and I'm glad you keep bringing up Derek Bell and the permanence of racism, right? He was an incredible scholar. And remember this, right? Since we're the original scientists on this planet, we are incredibly gifted and talented. So when they try to poison our children's minds like they're incapable of learning, of course that's going to lead from school to prison, because they're not going to have the confidence that they're going to be able to come out, get out here and not only get a job, but create a job or create a business. And that's what we have to do with cooperative economics as a people. We have to start creating together, right? All this thing, and it's important when we talk about literacy. They love reporting the dismal literacy rates amongst our children and our people, because that's an excuse for them to lock them up, right? And they always want to try to make it seem like it's the who. It's the mother's fault because the mothers ain't doing this or the fathers ain't in the household. But all of these things have been created by the enemy, right, to basically, in a sense, split up the black family. And it's worked to a T. So what we have to do when we're talking about reconstructing black civilization, not only do we have to first reconstruct our mind, we have to reconstruct our relationships between our brothers and our sisters and understand that we all have to work together, right? The family dynamic is one that you rarely hear talked about in the black community. It's always single mothers or single fathers. But we need to come together and unite, and that's what the Ark is about, right? It's about uniting the male principle, the female principle to create. And what we create is we create the children, which is our future. So it's important for us to understand that the knowledge of self is the basis of all true knowledge. They're not going to teach that in the school system. And if you don't know yourself, what do you know? If you ask a black child where they from, they're going to say America. If you ask a Chinese child, they're going to say China. See, and we really need to start looking at that. Like, they have made us ashamed to be Africa,
That's
but
right.
when we study and learn our history, we understand it's nothing else on this planet I would ever want to be. More than an African, regardless of the oppression.
I love my culture. Yeah.
Regardless of the exploitation, regardless of the mistreatment. If I had to do it all over again, which I probably will, it's going to be as an African.
So, right, definitely. I think I am too, brother. Definitely. But
An African Revolutionary War.
yes.
Brother Essence, before you
Yeah.
cut there, I just want to ask, bring to the light, when people say they're American, they're talking about a man who gave this place his name
Amerigo Vespucci.
between 1490 and 1500. That's very early.
Yeah.
Here we are. We've been around before civilizations were even
Bring it to him, though.
where it existed.
Yeah.
But we adopt some man who just came out yesterday with his record.
Right.
And this is who we want to identify with. This is absolutely deplorable. A mental dissent amongst our people. That we would rather take on names that people just got here. And they stole. Yeah. They robbed. We want to be identified with a culture that is that hires piracy as their form of economics. Robbery, thievery, rape, a rape culture. This is what they prided themselves on. Traveling, they weren't explorers, they were pirates. They were legalized thieves that were funded by their drug dealers. Their countries, their other places of abode. And that is imperialism. And that is what we pride ourselves in. First of all, we have to dismantle the lie because most people don't know who these people are that we are running around here saying that we are some kin to. And we have no affiliation, no connection. But of course, if you don't know who you are, you'll pick up anything. Yep. And that's very childlike. It's very infantile. And that is why we find ourselves so codependent on a rotten system, is because we don't know the right system. We're so busy trying to identify with the rotten system, we don't know that we had a system before this.
Right.
And
A system of governance.
I like that.
Our sister being educated. So all that, I got my education. Can't nobody, you've been educated. We were always side by side in the egalitarian society.
Come on.
The European always oppressed their women. The woman was always under their thumb. So when the white woman with the feminist movement, she got black women to join along. Like, come on, but they retained their men. They retained their families. While you left your men, you left your families because you bought into their ideologies. And that, it goes back, like I always say, we have amnesia. And it goes, like I always use the analogy of the movie Overboard. When Goldie Hawn fell off that boat, and Kurt Russell's character on the dock, he was a dock worker, and he figured out that she forgot who she was, so she had those 4 bad children of his. She was the wife, and she didn't know she was rich, and she came from a rich family and a rich background.
Right.
And then, so guess what she became? She became when you don't know who you are, you everything that people tell you that you are.
That's right.
You anything, you whatever. I don't even want to bring up the names, but you everything. So once you find out and go back and retrieve what you lost, which is Sankofa, no one can tell you anything. You know who you are, where you are, why you are. What's your purpose? What's your mission?
Well, and I think you're right, because now we're seeing this open pattern of practice where every so often America will give you this clean slate where you automatically forget. People forget. And then they give you a new slate. And that is an injustice. It's very diabolical in a tactic. When you commit an atrocity and you go, we're sorry, let's start over. And then you forget what just happened to you a century ago, a decade ago, a generation ago. And what we'll do is, and then they'll go, oh, that was history. And then you'll see it manifest today, what they just call history. So you never get over it because it keeps reoccurring. And that in itself is constant trauma. That is a mental assault where you're constantly being mentally attacked they won't allow you to come to grips that you have been in war mode.
Yeah, that's why I'm an advocate of therapy. 'Cause I personally, if it ain't nobody business why I go, but all of us need therapy.
Yes.
If you don't think you need therapy, you the main one that need therapy.
Right.
Even Dr. Phil need a Dr. Phil.
Yes.
And so we have to understand, because this trauma happened, and there's no redress, there's no solution. We just transgenerational behavior. It's things that get passed down in the family. When you look at Africa, you see how homosexuality is illegal in Africa,
That's
and
right.
by death in some countries. You see, we still got remnants of ourselves. We still have aspects of ourselves that's left over. We still got some of that, like who we are, and that shows you who we over here in this country, and we practice everything that they practice. We crazy out of our mind. And so when I see a sister or whatever that's got her children taken away, and I can see she got some serious, I don't really judge her like that, because I understand the trauma. And we're not in our right minds. You got to be crazy out your mind to be in this society. And so therapy is very, very, very important. I get it. Everybody need to get it, and that's very important.
I can't agree with that like that, because we are, and we on this show, what was it, the APA? They spoke about how
October 29th, 2021.
Can you read that?
I had to go through and
because
find
with
it.
the American American Psychiatrists Association, what they did was they wrote a letter to the Association of Black Psychologists apologizing for intentionally misdiagnosing black people over a long period of time, right? And I was proud of the Association of Black Psychologists, because they openly rejected the apology because of the damages, right, that they have done with so-called therapy. Now, I agree when we're like Nana Effia, right, an African Center psychologist. That's what I would push for.
Yeah.
You know,
I ain't talking about going to a therapist. We got to go to some. Say, for example, my therapist is is a black man, even though I go to a sister, and so the Black American Sociology platform, they branched off against the APA because the APA misdiagnosed us. So if anybody go get therapy, don't go get therapy for anybody.
That's right.
You want to go get it. Why? Because the white psychologist or therapist is going to tell you two things: the deficiencies in yourself and the deficiencies in your family. Not the black psychologist. They're going to tell you the deficiencies in yourself, the deficiencies in your family, and the deficiencies in the environment.
That's right.
The systemic aspect. See, the Europeans ain't going to bring up the environment aspect, because they have to tell on themselves.
That's
so
right.
I like that, brother. So when you do go to a therapist, don't go to any therapist or any psychologist. You want to go to somebody from the Black Psychological Association.
Someone that's African Center, because when we looked up and we got the response from the Association of Black Psychologists, I mean, they was talking about Maya, they was talking about our values, our principles, and they was right on point with our healing process.
Bro.
They even talked about saying Kofa. Shout out to
brother, hold 1 second. Peace family. You on live with Africans United, Know Thyself, Black Power Radio. Hello. All right, brother, I'm sorry for cutting you off. We had a phone call, but
you can't get them.
yeah, they hung up.
Okay. I forgot where I was at.
Yeah, I
the
apologize
Black
for cutting you off.
Association Psychology.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
because they were talking about Maya, and they even talked about saying Kofa, right? So the Association of Black Psychologists are deeply committed, to our history and to healing, right? Healing our minds, and I gotta, shout out. I was about to shout out Baba Atmos for his healing cycle. And he talked about, basically saying code for going back, understanding our history, what our ancestors left for us, the values, the principles, our ethics, right? And then basically the Ma'afa that we went through, the tragedy of tragedies that, our ancestors had to face and that we had to face. And then Maya, living a life of Maya, right? So that we can heal ourselves with truth, justice, and righteousness. And see, this is important for us to understand, right? Because we know that we've been victimized, but we cannot have a victim mentality. We have to have a warrior mentality while healing ourselves. Warriors need healing too. Right, but we cannot let that strip us of the strength that it's going to take for us to overcome the obstacles. Because remember, the first thing that they wanted to destroy was what? our minds.
Yes.
So they want us running to the mental health doctors and stuff like that. They want us to be out of our minds. They want us to admit that we are behind with failing and all these things. So a lot of times, we have to watch the information that we put out, right, and stuff, because we got to have, victories. Right, we have to win battle after battle, because there's so many battlefronts that we face as a people, and we have to win battle after battle after battle so that we can win this war.
Now, what about the illusion of these so-called educated brothers and sisters of ours? And I must say, I attended a university myself, and I got my real education at the underground university. But there's the so-called educated brothers and sisters of ours who probably make up maybe over 80% of our population here. We talking about the ones that's involved with the Greeks or NAACPs, or maybe be a Christian or any other separatory background.
I don't want to be too hard on our brothers and sisters, because we understand history and we understand oppression and exploitation, and we understand the reward and the punishment system, which is a part of this system, right? So, like Dr. Kim had spoke about, it was either her or Brother Shaka, about the brothers and sisters that are in certain positions politically that are affiliated with fraternities and sororities because they can be trusted. The reason they can be trusted is they are up under oath, right? What type of oath are they up under? They're up under a Greek oath, right? Because they're up under a Greek philosophy, which is European, right? So they're trusted. So, like I said, I don't want to be too hard on the brothers and sisters. They're trying to make it. They're trying to survive. They don't have the knowledge of self, right? They have the capability of having the knowledge of self, because everyone has the capability of learning. It's your choice whether you choose to be with your brothers and sisters from an African center way, or do you think that the ice is colder, on the other side with the white people. So that's what takes place a lot of times. And, people call our brothers and sisters all kinds of names. And not only does it take place here in the United States, throughout the diaspora, and even in Africa. When you look at what's taking place in Africa, the powerful AES movement with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, you look at all of the different presidents and prime ministers who secretly want to do away with them because they are doing great work for their countries, and it's making them look bad because they are siding with the oppressor and exploitation for their own greed and avarice, right? So you have to be incorruptible, right, when you become African center and when you for the people. You can't let nothing corrupt you. It was something on a podcast the other day that's been getting a whole lot of play, where the brother was asking the one brother, Terrence Crawford, about will he come back and fight for 80 million or 100 million. He said no. He said that'd be like selling his soul. And then the other brother was like, well, I'll sell my soul. A lot of people feel like that, and that's not no shade to the brother Shannon Crowd. I think that's his name. There ain't no shade to him. A lot of people think like that secretly, and they'll do it for less than $100 million.
Right.
They'll do it for $1,000 or $500, right? Just because that's a lack of knowledge of self. And they don't understand the principle of I am because we are, therefore I am. Shetawat Netta enjoys the sharing of the resources. Shetawat Netta enjoys the protection of the weak and oppressed. Shetawat Netta enjoys the protection of nature, right? So we have divine principles, right, that keep us, and when we stay true to Maya, truth, justice, and righteousness, we don't become corrupt. You can put $1 billion in front of me, I can never turn against my brothers and sisters. That's the type of consciousness that we have to develop, but it's not developed overnight. It's developed through time and through education and through teaching. Because like our ancestors said, no one is born wise.
That's a Pan-African philosophy you have there, brother.
Yes.
And we have a lot of entities branching off that do have a little knowledge of self, and once was Pan-Africanists who's branching off and creating a new form of separation out here now. Pan-Africanism, yes, ma'am.
For just a small, Brother Ausar mentioned people's sellout points.
Yeah.
And that's what we have when we start talking about Boule, these various levels. Because, of course, there is a higher truth, the highest truth, and no truth at all. And for hundreds of years, you have witnessed the American system not only function, but create a dynamic of breaking. So whether it's breaking physically like they did during slavery or now breaking mentally through education, is that the only way you're going to survive is if you eat the diet that we tell you in order for you to survive. So what you have are those who consider themselves to be educated, but in all actuality, they're indoctrinated. And they have assimilated so that they can survive. Now, they may be the only people living, but everybody else is dying. And a slow death. Now, I know that we don't lynch by a tree anymore, but as long as I'm cutting off circulation to your brain, to your community, to your family structure, as long as I'm cutting off all of these things over time, you are slowly digressing. And I think a lot of times because we are not, everything is not like the physical George Floyd death. We think that we're okay.
Right. That's a nice point.
Can I say this right quick?
Let me make this last point, Brother Kevin.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
fine. My concern, and I'll take you back to as soon as we came out of quote unquote one slavery, we went into another. 1865, they claimed we were free.
13th Amendment.
But and watch this, like you said, brother, the 13th Amendment said that if you commit a crime,
Except
we're gonna send you back onto slavery. We were looking at the criminals. We were scared that we would have a base full of criminals that would go back onto the plantation. But we failed to watch who they were going to make the new slaveholders. The new slave patrollers were black men. And
the educated class.
The educated class. And let me tell you who the other slave patrollers were in 1866, were the Buffalo Soldiers. Now, the Buffalo Soldiers, everybody like, oh, look at these black men with guns. But don't you get too excited, because Congress was the one who deputized them immediately after slavery to kill and push off the natives, the quote-unquote natives, out past the Mississippi. Because, see, slavery was not supposed to go past the Mississippi line, the Mississippi River. They said nobody could develop more slaves beyond that line. But when they saw that there was a 50-50 chance that we may win the Civil War, they let the pipeline go. They let the dam go. And they said, now you white people can settle out west, but we're going to have to kill them Indians that we pushed out that way. Them 5 tribes that was pushed out that way, now they said you can have their land too. And that's who they deputized. They deputized black men called the Buffalo Soldiers to kill natives on their behalf. Is that not the pattern that we are seeing today? That they are hiring black men to help push black folks out of their communities?
Yep.
How do we get gentrification?
Sound like when we was talking about Corey Branch, me and Brother Ausar.
Oh.
And he's developer friendly. When you look at their policies, you look at how they voting record, you look at their donors.
Right.
Their donors will tell you everything of how they gonna vote. Corey Branch's donors, which is like other black political black council members, they are funded by these developers. These developers gonna come into your city. They're gonna come into that black side of town. Mm-hmm. Once you start to see bike lanes in your black neighborhood,
that's right.
You start to see greenways. You start to see developers coming in.
That's right.
That means that the property value going to go up. That means the rent going to go up.
That's right.
The rent going to go up. The mortgage is going to go up, and it's going to push the people out. So they don't have to worry about an eviction notice. The people can't afford it. So that's how you systemically move people out. You gentrify the area.
That's right. And then you add African Americans to the face of your enslavement.
Yes. Put a black face. Like they put Jay-Z on that basketball team.
And the NFL.
The Brooklyn Nets.
The Brooklyn Nets and the NFL.
Yep.
So now they don't know how to fight MAGA because who is your entertainment department is Jay-Z.
Jay-Z came in and said, we ain't talking about Nilla. We passed that.
Right. So you got to watch who they hire as their protection.
They put a black face on
They
white
put a black-
supremacy.
That's right. They put a black face on white supremacy. Go ahead, Brother Ausar.
I want to give a shout out to the young warriors out there, the brothers and sisters. I've been running across quite a bit of them with the knowledge of self, who's really pushing for unification globally. And I think that, and when I see how young these brothers and sisters are, it put a smile on my face, because we always have to, have confidence in ourselves. The same way we know that our ancestors left a legacy for us to build on.
Yes.
Right? And we have to do the same thing. And I see these young brothers and sisters really getting into it and passionate. And there's nothing wrong, with being passionate. And, a lot of times they get up there, they debate. And a lot of times that's the early stages of coming into consciousness.
Yes.
Right? Because you're challenging and you're being challenging and you're developing, your thoughts and things of that nature. But 5 years from now, your thought process may evolve to something even higher.
Yes.
And that's the goal, because it's levels, right? And we want to raise our consciousness to a level of enlightenment where our mind is lucid and we're able to reason, right? And that's why I like to talk about the teachings that our ancestors left for us, because a lot of people, unfortunately, and this is something that, we have to be able to do, is get this information out to our brothers and sisters. It's like when we talk about the Sheddies, right? We're talking about like the wisdom teachings, which help with reasoning and it helps with the intellect, right? Meditation is another Sheddy. It helps with the will. It helps us to develop a strong will, because we're sitting there focusing, meditating on the teachings, meditating on our responsibility to our family, our community, and humanity, right? And then we got Maya, right? We got righteous action, which is a shady. The things that we do, right? So when we practice Maya and we're giving back to the community, helping our community, I really don't like to say giving back, because we are part of our community and we are one,
That's
right?
right.
And then when we talk about devotional love, right, which is another shady. With devotional love teaches us is, and this is going through also the energy consciousness centers, or the chakra. But devotional love is when our heart opens up to love not just our immediate family or our community, but all of our brothers and sisters globally, and all of humanity globally. Because at the end of the day, we understand that all people on this planet are African, right? Some have just basically, through the migrations and
Mutations.
through time mutations and everything like that that's taking place, it changed their personality. And it's just like when Dr. Sheik Anti-Dioke, when he talked about the northern cradle and the southern cradle. The northern cradle, the Caucasians coming from a cold climate, help develop their personality. Us coming from a warm climate, helping to develop our personality. We have to get back to our African personality, right? And we have and I got to say this, Baba Akmos, Dr. Elijah Mickle, he'll be here February 22nd. This is the African History Month, right? Black History Month. He'll be here on February 22nd, and that's what we're going to be talking about, the African personality, right? And I think that that's important, because how they say, just like when the brother was talking about Overboard, right, and Goldie Hawn, right, and how she forgot who she was, and he was able to manipulate her. But once that she realized who she was, she realized she was rich. But what happened? She fell in love with him.
Yes.
See, that's the same thing here. A lot of, unfortunately, our brothers and sisters have fell in love with the Europeans.
With the oppressor.
Stockholm syndrome. Yep.
The Stockholm syndrome, right? So that's why when we're talking about the fraternities and sororities, they just been miseducated. And Carter G. Woodson, he spoke about that, the miseducation of the Negro.
Right.
So we're getting miseducated on what's considered to be the low end. Our children in school, the ones who they say can't read, and on the high end, the ones who are supposed to be what they considered at one time the talented 10th. I never liked that. Right? Or the divine 9. I really don't like that neither, because we're all divine. And that's delineation in itself. The same way that the FBA and other groups are trying to do. They are delineating without saying delineating when we need to unify.
If you go to Atlanta, Georgia, it's racism everywhere,
Yeah.
but it's less racism. It's more about classism, and it's more about fraternity. If you are not in a fraternity or sorority in Atlanta, Georgia, you are highly frowned down upon. If you are not in a fraternity or a sorority in Atlanta, Georgia, you are nothing. I've seen them talk to each other, and I've seen, like in the McDonald's, I was in Georgia, and I seen the brother talk to another Greek member, and they seen another person come in that was a part of a fraternity, and I seen how they talk about each other. They were like, "Oh, that's a Greek. He's a Greek too." They refer to each other as Greeks. I asked the brother one day, I said, "Bro, do you got that tattoo, that mark on your arm? They branded you or whatever." I said, "You really want to? Do you know how the Greeks were? You must, if you really knew who the Greeks were and what they practice and what a mentor really is, you might not want to be no Greek no more." So
Or
know
not
your history.
Yeah, not even just knowing like their bad parts of the Greeks, but just knowing that they came into Northern Africa,
Yes.
or into Africa itself before it was even called Africa.
And how we had our black women beside us, and they had administrative positions no different than us, and they were turned off and appalled by that.
They just learned everything.
How they gonna have a woman
they
beside
was
them like
taught,
that? Yeah.
They was taught what they know from out of there. First and foremost, the ones that they put up on the pedestal.
Yeah.
From Aristotle to Plato's to Socrates to Pythagoras, all of them.
But they received all of their philosophy from us.
That's what I said.
So,
they
right.
was taught in
They'll
North
say it.
Africa. Exactly.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and here's the thing. That is why it is imperative that those who are elders in our community immediately arrest these lies, because they go on for centuries and generations, and they make up the fabrics of our education system. In so much they determine how economics is disseminated throughout our communities, how we respect each other, how we look on each other. These things have to be dismantled. We have a duty. I know we apologize for, we don't want to be too hard on our brothers and sisters, and so, we don't want to, but let me say this. If we don't, they become the co-conspirators to this system that kills and devalues our quality of life, not just here, but throughout the diaspora.
Yeah.
Because it don't stop here, because who would have a HBCU that takes on Greek living? I'm trying to understand. How do you go from being pro-black to now taking on pro-Greek Greek thinking or Greek mythology, whatever you would like to call it? And you don't see that reciprocated openly amongst the Greeks. For us, they're not out there putting a billboard up to say that they honor what we gave them, because we certainly gave it away. Why? Because we are the origin. We're not intimidated by giving away pure knowledge. Of course you need black civilization in your country. Of course you need black understanding throughout the world, not just in Africa. And that is the other thing. We're not second class to anybody. The knowledge that we have is a superior knowledge, not because we're superior, but because our DNA structure gives off the superiority, not to rule, but to reign as a culture of people, as a species. And we shouldn't be intimidated by that. Neither should anybody be intimidated by us, because we're givers. We're life givers. That is in the cycle of life that we have when we say black or melanated. I think sometimes we need to make sure that we are making the equivalency of Africa. When we say Africa, we also need to equate melanated and black as a scientific term, because even Africa comes from Africanus, if I'm not mistaken.
Scarfo.
The system, I think that the system, right? When we look at the system, right, and if we're going to talk about the HBCUs, they're part of the system, right? So when you're talking
their funding
about
comes from them.
these
That's
Greek fraternities and sororities, they are part of the system. That's why they get these positions. So you can't, when people are part of the system, they're going to side with the system and the institutions that feed them and benefit. Even the unconscious brothers and sisters who work for the system, right, whether they fraternities or not, still working against what? Their own best interests and their own brothers and sisters' best. It's just like a police officer. a black police officer, right? What do you think a black police officer is trained to do? It's trained to lock up who?
Black folk.
People.
Yep.
That's why they created the police force to start
Yep,
with,
yep.
and the industrial prison complexes for us. So we really need to take a look at that. See, racism, and that's why I love Derek Bell, because when he talked about the permanence of racism, it's so permanent that we won't even really challenge it. We accept it as
That's
a
true.
people.
We so used to
And
it.
we send our children, we just send them to school where we know that they are going to be discriminated against.
It's true.
Right? And placed on all kinds of psychotropic drugs and things of that nature. And we'll sit back, and who will we blame? We'll blame the children.
That's right.
You need to act better, or we'll blame the parents, or we'll blame the father for not being there. Right? So when you understand our brothers and sisters, they have taken a path where they want to be safe, right? And they don't want to challenge the system. Because with challenge comes what? Punishment, right? And that's why
right.
when you look at what's taking place over there in Africa with all the coups and stuff, what do they do when somebody stand up for the people? They assassinate them,
That's true.
right? Because the goal is always to what? Dominate the people. And they dominate us to the point where when we see something happen with our brothers and sisters, we act like it's normal because it's been taking place. It's not normal.
The DSM-46 also says something about the Black Messiah, making sure not another Black Messiah rise.
Electrify the people and bring the
Yeah,
people
something
together.
like that. And so, but we gotta remind ourselves that Pan-Africanism was born in the diaspora.
That's right.
To encourage and strengthen bonds of all indigenous peoples of African descent, and the peoples of Africa that's right in Africa now. So in 1900, Henry Williams, a Trinidadian, Henry Sylvester Williams, a barrister, lawyer, writer, a Trinidadian barrister of that nigga, organized the first Pan-African conference, and it was to protest the stealing of land in the colonies, racial discrimination, and deal with other issues of the interests of blacks. So what I want to ask you, Brother Shaka, what do we need to spread the message and the practice of Pan-Africanism in 2026?
Like you was talking about, like we was talking about the brothers and stuff that was talking about delineation. People need to understand, like ADOS, American Descendants of Slave, and then you got FBA. These are separatist groups. I personally believe they got some infiltrators that's at the top, not the brother, because you got some good brothers and sisters that's probably a part of it. I'm not talking about them, but the leadership at the top that create these terminologies, I think they've personally been compromised, like your Tariq Nasheed, your Yvette Carnels. Because we have to come together. Like, I know all of us aren't, but we have to, because we have something in common, you know? And so, globally, we've been destroyed. No matter where we go, white on top, black on the bottom, no matter where you go. And we see it systemically. And so to understand it, we have to understand historically what has happened to us and what continuously is being done to us, and how they use people like us that look like us to carry it out. And so, so Pan-Africanism, first of all, Pan, for people to get an understanding, Pan means across. So when people talking about Pan-African, okay. All right, so the sister was just saying something about Africa and Afrikaners. So Scipio Africanus, Cornelius Publius Scipio Africanus. Well, his actual name is Cornelius Publius, but after he conquered Africa, he had the name added to him, the anagram added to his name, Africanus, meaning the conqueror of Africa. You had Claudius that conquered Germany in 49 BCE. And after he conquered the German people, he became Claudius Germanicus. You had another one, what's his name? You had Claudius, and you had Domitian. Domitian conquered the British people in 69 BCE. And he had the title on his name, Domitian Britannicus. So this is something that the Romans do. So Africa is not named his name because of the white boy, Africanus. He had that title added to his name after they conquered his land. Scipio's brother name was Cornelius Publius Asiaticus. You know why he had the Asiaticus add to the back of his name? Because he conquered the Asia Minor area. So some people misread history, because I heard other people say before that I'm not African because it's named after a white man. And they did light research on it. He had that title bestowed to him after he conquered Hannibal in the Punic Wars. And so I have to explain it talking about Pan-Africanism, because you have some people saying I'm not African. That's named after a white man. So Pan means across. It means across the globe. I believe in the unification of one political body of black people. I don't even like to use the word African descent. We Africans, because it's like we some hybrids or something like that if I say descent.
Or why not just the original people?
And we've been
that way we don't take on anybody's name, because there's no name that can solidify or define who we are as a people. You can't just put, because if you had so many tribes in Africa, many of them call that patch of land various things based off of the name of that tribe.
And the Igbos,
they all had a different name for that land.
Yep.
And so if we are the original people, then guess what? That origin, I think who we are is bigger than the patch of land that we are on. Because you'll see us migrate into areas across the globe. That's why when we say Pan-Africanism, it's not just talking about a people, but it's all encompassing to every creature. Because you can't have melanin is in everything.
That's right.
Whether it's little or a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And it came from us. It came from the Creator, whose DNA understands that better than the original people. And that's why we should be honored across the globe. And we shouldn't be inferior to being unified across the globe.
That's one hell of a point she just made right then about the different tribes. I want to get into one. Just give me a second, but brother, so I want to ask you real quick, while we still on this Pan-African thing right now, what type of work do you see real Pan-African work do you see that might need more support or more spotlight shine?
What's going on with the AES? What's going on with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger is the model. That's the paradigm.
That's right.
That Africa should be following, because once Africa liberates itself, we're gonna be liberated across the planet.
Yeah.
Right. And we have to do our part in supporting Africa. How can we do our part here supporting Africa? By doing what we're supposed to do here for liberation, to dismantle institutional racism. Because when you talk about the Security Council at the United Nations, it's 5 countries on the Security Council that make all the decisions globally, right? And they can veto anything they want. And that's United States, Great Britain, France, Russia, and China, right? Africa is trying to get 2 countries on it, but they don't want that because they don't want Africa to have power. So we have to do what we can do here to support ourselves, to build our knowledge up, right? To collaborate, work with our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, and work with our brothers and sisters on the continent. We have to develop a pipeline of communication where we can get the right information to one another as far as what's going on the continent and in the diaspora and what's going on over here. It's a lot of misinformation that's constantly being put out to confuse the people and to keep us discombobulated, right? So what we can do is we can gain the knowledge of self, we can understand our history, and we can understand that we got 1.4 billion brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa who need our support.
That's right.
And we need their support.
That's
and
right.
we have to work together.
Brother Kevin, can I ask you, when I hear you speak, what I hear is that when I hear you say Africa as it relates to us, I hear you saying that we are Africa.
Yes, indeed.
Everywhere.
Right.
When we all stand up, Africa survives.
That's right.
We survive. We not only survive, we live and are liberated wherever we stand on this globe. Right. They told us we belong to a patch and a little. No, we are everywhere.
That's right.
That's why it's important for us to say all Pan.
Yeah, that's right.
Like brother said, Pan. We are not small. A lot of times they feed us this little inferior narrative, a little storytelling there. You little black people, no, we kings. We were kings here. You can find our kingship in every portion of land on this globe. Yeah. Our hands touch. Our artifacts are there. Our DNA is there. They like to pick up history in 1900 and 1400 and then feed us this narrative. No, we are DNA. We are the civilization. And that is why we must rise up as Africa everywhere.
Another thing I want to say as far as the Reconstruction, right, and you talk about the example, the AES, I want to speak on the president of the Economic Freedom Fighters in South Africa.
Come on.
The powerful brother, Julius Malema.
Oh, yeah.
Right, they're trying to basically, they convicted him of a firearms charge. He shot a rifle at a rally in 2018 because they're trying to silence this brother's voice.
Yeah.
Because this brother is like no other brother when it comes to standing up for Africa. And he's talking about having a one Africa. And he basically, he let them know in the parliament that they need to start listening to him because one day he is going to be the president. And that's the type of leadership we need. Uncompromising leadership. He said that they can lock him up. It ain't going to silence him. EFF is going to get stronger. He said that they could try to kill him because he know they want to silence him. The same way they want to silence the Captain Ibrahim Traore, Burkina Faso.
That's right.
And also the president of Mali and Niger, because these are Pan-Africanists who are standing up and they basically are fighting for the benefit of all Africans globally.
Yes.
Okay.
And we are Pan-Africans here.
Yes, in the diaspora, definitely.
We here.
We down to the final 5 minutes real quick. So let's talk about this great empire that was this civilization. It was a culture of ancient African people of Mali. Let's go into them real quick. It was a large family of farmers and blacksmiths known as the Dogons, of course. The whole way of life is built around deep spiritual, scientific understanding of the cosmos, lands, communities, and why it matters right now is where we want to get to, though, because the moment where African nations like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, they're trying to reclaim their security, their resources, and narrative through the AES. And I think, like I stated, just the Dogons is from out of Mali and that whole region right there. So, Brother Shaka, can you give us like their key contributions? Walk us through a little bit of them.
You're looking at the migration within the interior of Africa after the Arab invasions, before the Europeans came. So you're looking at that. So a lot of our people migrated into the interior of Africa, and so the Dogons are some of those people. Just like you got before the desertification of the Sahara, before you had Kemet, after the desertification of the Sahara, you had a migration towards East Africa, towards the Nile, and which was an amalgamation of different groups of Bantu people that came together in Kemet. And so the Dogons come from that. And so they practice an oral history, just like most of our history is an oral history. Mm-hmm. And the people that was responsible for that oral history, they would be held to a high esteem. Like if you got one thing wrong, it could cost you your life. You can't get nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. And so they was responsible for passing down the history. And the number one thing I think about when it comes to the Dogons is Sirius B, something that the Europeans didn't know about until the 1800s. And they've been talking about it from way back then. And so very powerful, intelligent people, and no one really took them serious until the 1800s, till the European scientists realized what they was talking about. Mm-hmm. And so that's it right there.
Okay. Brother Sa, you want to speak on?
Well, yeah, I think it's important because of Mali and what's going on now in Mali, right? And I think that, for the listeners, if they were, research the Dogon people, they will see their incredible contributions to civilization as far as charting the stars and out there in the universe and things of that nature. I think that, it shows the mathematical genius, that our ancestors had, because they would chart stars and for thousands of years.
That's how you know we old.
And nobody,
we very old.
No one individual lives that long. So the knowledge is always passed down and the research continues.
Right.
The same way that we're researching, the great works of a lot of our ancestors as we continue on this mission for the liberation of all of our brothers and sisters.
Sure.
And I want to leave with this point right here, right? Because we're here in the United States, and this is in reference to the United States, but also can be applied globally.
That's right.
Right? can you be liberated without justice? And what is justice without liberation?
Come on.
Right. So when we look at this country, right, and we understand systemic racism, that lets us know that there is no justice. So we have to deal with that, and we have to liberate ourselves. And once we become liberated, and then we'll have justice.
It's true. And let me say this too. The brothers talk about the contributions of Mali. Of course we are astrologers. Of course we are scientifically inclined. You know, America is getting cheated from their anger and inferiority. They can't obtain what we truly could present because they're too busy trying to oppress the true gift that we have. So it's good, like I think Brother said, how they probably get more satisfaction of presenting this display that we're less than or incapable. But we are the original astrologers.
Yes.
So we are going to have to show that history before they start telling their history. You know, when they talk about Black history, they start once we get here. But our history doesn't start when we get here. Our intelligence predates them. So, you know, that is where and we must tell our own story, not his story.
Right. That was great right there. We started way before we stepped foot on this land.
Before the 1600s.
Before the 1619, somewhere around there or something. I did have another question, but I think we are past 11 at this moment. So we're going to find a way to close out. But what I want to know, if y'all want to give any final thoughts before we close out.
I just want to say that, you know, I think that the unification of all African people is very important, and the knowledge itself is the basis of all true knowledge. I think we have to have an open mind, because if we have a closed mind, we're not going to be able to accomplish anything. I think that, you know, we have to understand knowledge is a force, but ignorance is a force too.
True.
Ignorance is a dynamic force. So we want to stay away from that. So we want to try to educate our children and our brothers and sisters the proper way.
Okay. All right, family. Underneath everything we touched today, Dogon wisdom, Pan-African unity, fight against systemic racism. We even touched the AES a little bit today, pushing back on the neo-colonialism control. Is one message, and that message is our civilization is not dead. It is under reconstruction.
Yes.
Reconstruction means institutions, economies, cultures, those things that put the African people and African land at the center. From Raleigh to the Sahel, we should be teaching, organizing, and resourcing African-led movements. And remember, proper education always corrects error. Peace.
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 Everybody, hotel.
That was.